Bless each and every one of you. It's good to be once again in our pastoral chat and trust that the Lord has given us something to share with you today. I do want to take a little moment today and share something with you from the Word of the Lord. And I'm going to Exodus, the 2nd chapter. I want to read a little bit here regarding Moses, as he was nothing but just a small child at the time, around 2 years of age. He was born under the auspices of the Egyptian government, and the government there had decreed that all Jewish Hebrew children, that were 2 years and younger would be slain. And so his mother saw that he was a proper child, and she hid him as long as she could. Eventually he grew older and got bigger, and there at a little less probably than 2 years of age, probably just a few months of age, the Bible seems to imply that she could no longer hide him. I'm sure it was for the fact that he was crying, and the cries of a child could be heard in the neighborhood. And so the Bible tells us that she made a small boat. The Bible calls it an ark. And it said that she made it out of straw, and the bulrushes and the different things that grew there by the riverside of the River Nile. She made this particular little boat and an ark, or what you'd call to the child, is probably considered a small ship. And she pitched it within and without so that it would not leak, and so it would be buoyant enough to hold her little baby. She put him in that little boat. The Bible said there in verse 4 that after she put him in that little boat beside the river, the flags by the river brink, in verse 3, it said in verse 4 that Miriam, his sister, was charged by his mother to watch over him there at the edge of the river. It said his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done for him. And it said the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrew children." There's a very key phrase there in that reading, and to me it's the pivot point for the divine intervening hand of God. Of course, God knew beforehand how this would unfold. And the Bible said when they opened that little ark and they looked inside, it said the babe wept, and said the mother had compassion upon the child. That was the turning point that provided a miracle, not only for a baby, but also for a nation. Today I could be talking to someone here who, like Moses' mother, is making that last-ditch effort to try to make something happen that seems quite impossible. When I think of people like that, I think of the widow at Zarephath, and the Bible said went out one day and found 2 sticks because she was fixing her last cake, and then she was going to die. Or I think of that little boy who was a shepherd, as you well know, David, who ran into the valley with nothing but a sling and some stones to face a 9-foot giant. But he was going into places he'd never gone before, but he was going in faith. And I think of that woman whom the Bible said in the book of John that she had been sick for 12 years and was none better. But she said, I'm going to make one more effort. I'm going to go out there, and if I can just touch the border of the garment of Jesus', the hem of his robe, she said, I believe I will be okay. Today I may be speaking to someone who seems as though that which they want to see accomplished is quite impossible. There's no way whatsoever that it could come to pass. You're like the Zarephath. You're the woman of Zarephath, the little widow. You've used everything you've got, and you've only got a handful of resources left to try to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. And you've already written out your last epitaph, so to speak. You're going to fix your last cake, and then you're going to sit down and just call it quits. But today I want you to know that there is a pivot point in ever miraculous and divine intervention. Because there's something about God when he sees people doing the best with the best that they have. It is then that God is compelled to step in and do what only God can do. So as I'm speaking here today of those of you that are trying to accomplish what seems to be the impossible, you're much like Moses' mother. You never read anywhere where anyone had ever taken a baby and put it in a small craft made out of straw and mud and placed their baby in a river. There were 3 reasons why it would not work. One of those was, number 1, if he was found, he would be killed. Number 2, the fact was that the little vessel in time would probably sink. And number 3, more than likely, that particular child in that river would probably drown. There's a lot of reasons why that child would have never made it in that situation. However, there's something about men and women when they come to their last effort. Somebody used to call it the last ditch effort. When you've thrown it all in, you're doing everything that you can. It's there that God somehow is always drawn to those situations. He's drawn to those situations, and he's able to bring about a pivot point in that particular dilemma, which seems to be on the road to destruction, but yet everything turns around, just like it was here with Moses, when the Bible said the baby wept, and it said, and that princess had compassion on him. That was the pivot. That was the turning point. I think of the Apostle Paul when he said one time, I know that this shall turn to my salvation through your prayers and through the supply of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. So today, my friend, brothers and sisters, I challenge you to have hope. I challenge you to hold on and believe God that even in the midst of what seems to be dire circumstances, that is where God does his best work. You're like the disciples in the midst of the sea, in the middle of the night, and in the midst of a storm. But that's where God does his best work. So get ready, brother. Get ready, sister. God's about to walk into your world and do things that the human mind would never even think were possible. Because when you take your last stand and you give the best that you got, know this, that somewhere in that particular dilemma, God has planted a pivot turning point where things are going to turn around for you, and God is going to demonstrate his ability to seek and to save. So the Lord bless you today. I pray that the few words that we have spoken have brought some sense of faith and encouragement into your life. And know this, amen, his arm is not short that it cannot save. God bless you today.